Hello and welcome to the third and final part of my interview with Jess Stafford. I want to jump in and actually circle back on some really interesting comments you made in part one, namely about the product that British racing provides and the reason people go. And it's been well documented that there have been efforts to get younger people into racing. And I was just wondering, if you were in charge, how would you get more people going to courses? We've seen some dwindling attendances, and obviously things are a bit tough for people at the moment. And secondly, how would you get more young people there, hopefully to enjoy the sport as well as all the other things that go with it?
Yeah, great question. I've actually got a friend of mine who's my age, 30, going off to Goodwood tonight with a group of friends. Thought it was very random because she's not someone that would go racing that often. So I asked her why she's going along, and she said a friend of hers lives nearby Goodwood, and he's decided to bring a group of people together to come and stay with him, and thought it'd be something different than doing something in London on a Friday night. And I thought that was brilliant. And you only need that one person to come up with the idea to make it happen. But why has that person thought about it? Yes, he lives nearby. That race course has done a good job in their surrounding area to try and get people thinking about the racing that's on. Perhaps there is an offer for groups. I think pricing racing is so important. Royal Ascot, as wonderful as it is, has really put itself off by making it completely unaffordable for people of my age. If I wanted to take a group of people racing, I would want it to be enticing. I want it to be attractive to a group of people, because you've got to spend money when you're there. So pricing of tickets needs to be really looked at. There should be a young person's night, or there should be some sort of work around owners' tickets. If there are lots of horses running and there aren't many owners attending, who's going to use those? Who's funding the tickets? Why can't we do a concession when gets to the point in 5 days to go, there aren't that many people coming along, so to get people through the gates we'll have a cost incentive. There needs to be a really good strategic way about the way that we cost up racing, and it can start from a younger age, much younger. I was part of the Trinity Horse Racing Society over in Dublin, which I ran after Jack Cantillon did, who's another big name in the sport, and he set up the Student Race Day, which brought students throughout the country to Leopardstown for free racing to get people interested. Now, 100 people might go from one university, and there could be 2 or 3 that might come back again, but at least that is 2 or 3 more than nothing. So it is coming up with creative ideas to get people through the gates. But you do just need that one person to take that initiative, like we've got going on this evening. And I think that's probably because he lives in the right part of the world. He's in and amongst it. He's seen one person that intense, sparks his enthusiasm. But we need to go out and be a little bit more proactive when it comes to that. And it all starts with making something attractive. And they do that at festivals. They do that, if there's something that grips you in, and just making something affordable can help that.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with budgets under much tighter strain. One thing actually I'm also interested in is what routes do you think would be helpful when it comes to getting not just young people through the gates racing, but also getting, I think, more young people to work in racing and possibly the racing media, because we've seen, I think, some young analysts coming through, but also some people say, and I think it's a fair point, maybe racing needs to be a little more diverse. And indeed, there was the recent, some might say, scandal of the all-male Derby Cup Awards dinner thing. Now, I was just wondering if you think there's any improvements racing can make in that area.
The one issue that racing does have is that it's a small world. There's only 2 everyday racing channels: Sky Sports Racing, Racing TV, obviously ITV as well. But there are 2 racing channels. If you think about, say, if you're working in news or politics or whichever, there's there's a much bigger pool of opportunity to get involved. So we've got a limit. We've only got one trade paper. We've got a lot of online content now as well, but you find a lot of people, you know, I work for SBK on top of a role with Racing TV, on top of a role with TVG. I don't just have one job, and that's because I as I said to you earlier, I need to be busy. I want to have as much as possible, but me having an additional role somewhere else means that someone wouldn't get that opportunity. Now, is that fair? I think it is, because I need to have as much as possible. I need to keep my profile large, and I wouldn't be busy enough in my mind without it. And also, one person couldn't just do that job on its own. I wouldn't be able to afford to just do one job on its own. But that's the problem. But then there again, that's the catch-22. That's the problem. There's just not enough roles out there. But that doesn't mean we can't, let's go back again to our other point, reconstruct racing so that there are opportunities. I think that the betting industry was a great roll through for me, and that I was able to see an aspect of racing that I knew enough about from my own, you know, personal hobbies side, getting to understand the gambling industry, but working within it gave me a bit of a wider view of it, and it educated me. And I think that maybe not is of interest to as many people, but it definitely gives you plenty of opportunities. So I think, yes, everyone, there could be lots of people, and I love now looking at Twitter that there is plenty more females now that are into you know, blogging, into creating videos, into photography. You know, I'm thinking of Fran Altos, who's brilliant. She's like, you know, such a great figure now in racing. There's Zoe Smith, who's doing a lot on tote. Like, there's lots of female presence around, which is brilliant. But what I like about them is that they're carving out something that's a little bit different. They're going down routes that kind of challenge them. It's wonderful to think that everyone could just want to become a presenter one day. And obviously I'm lucky to be in the role that I'm in, but I've gone through different hoops to give me a more rounded view outside of it. And I don't think people should be scared of that, going off and doing something a little bit different, that can give you a bigger perspective. You know, you yourself, you go off and do politics, you can see that. And I think there is a lot of transferable skills there. So if racing isn't working right now for you in terms of getting involved, I wouldn't be worried about doing something else within sports, because I think we can learn a lot about other sports. We can learn a lot about Formula One. We can learn a lot about golf, tennis, football. Go and do that, challenge yourself, and come back in, because that will your racing interest will never go away. But that they're coming up with great programs at the moment to get people more involved and do training programs and doing internships and things like that. I just feel, and I worry, that there aren't enough roles to go around for everyone. Not because there is, you know, the industry obviously needs more talent, it needs more people, but it's just extremely competitive. I know that there were plenty of people that went for the junior presenter role that I'm in now at Racing TV, and that's just the way it was. It couldn't be catered for everyone. You could see how many presenters there are on ITV. There are a lot of talented people out there. It is a hard world, and you've just got to be thick-skinned and try everything you can to better yourself professionally, and then whatever. And I do believe, like, good things happen for a reason, and you'll get to that point. So hopefully, you know, if you back yourself and have the confidence, and I said that, I talked about confidence, and it's a funny word. Like, I go on Twitter, which is a bit of a cesspit, and I had a lot of difficulty on it early on, because I was nervous about raising my own opinion, nervous about that people would just assume I don't know what I'm talking about, nervous that I would say things that people also want you to fail sometimes. People want you to not do well because they find it irritating. Don't know why. I had a lot of that. So I found it easier talking about furlough stuff, because that's something that it's not about my opinion, it's just about the horses. So sometimes it is all about confidence, and Twitter can be quite a tricky place. So I've got a lot of respect for people that base a lot of their working culture around it, because yeah, it can be a little bit terrifying as well at times.
Did you ever consider leaving Twitter at any point? Did it ever get that bad that you thought it might be best not to be there?
Not leaving it, but definitely not using it as much. There were a couple of moments earlier on, about a couple of years ago, where I was very naive, and I went on I'm lucky to be on TVG. TVG, by the way, is something that came out of my work with Betfair. They're part of the same conglomerate, part of Flutter. And I pushed hard to go over to TVG. I worked out in LA with them for a while, and it was something I earned out of good work at Betfair. It's not something that's fallen in my lap, and I really am proud of working for them, and I want to do a good job, but I have pushed them to get me on every week. And there were a couple of times where I would say something that maybe is a bit controversial, maybe not everyone agrees with. That one thing that I said did get reposted, and it offended a few people. And I got a lot of abuse from people about it. And it did get me down, but it's also made me probably thicker skinned. And I know that this game is all about opinions. People are not going to agree with me, and that is absolutely fine. And I'd rather people not agree with me and I've made my own opinion and I stand by it, than someone just not like me for no reason. I find it really, it stresses me out sometimes if someone just doesn't like me for no reason at all. I'd rather them not like me because they don't agree with me and I'm like, fine, whatever, it's an opinion, then they just don't like the sound of me. It's just that probably something that I've always grown up just to want to get on with someone, want to show them respect and get the respect back as well. So that's why Twitter I can find quite hard. But that's just me personally.
Let me ask you about another part of your jobs, or various jobs. Fellow thoroughbreds. First of all, just quickly, well, you described it in part one, but how does the membership work? Am I right in thinking it's a sort of Highclere model where there are a group of people inside Furlough who may get offered shares in horses as their boards? Buzz obviously is the biggest example. Is it that everybody has a piece of every horse, or that you're a member of the club and then you get offered shares or whatever in various prospects?
Yeah, so what we do is we go off and buy the horses, my dad and I and our bloodstock agents, and then we essentially underwrite it. So we know that when we buy them that we have to go out and get the syndicate members. So it's a bit like buying a horse on spec as a trainer and then trying to go and get an owner. But we've got a good list of members that spans back 30 years, and people that might have been off for a few years and want to come back, that we send the emails out to and say, we bought this horse and that horse, we're selling them at X amount for 12, 15 shares. And it's a first come, first served basis. If you're interested, you'll come back, you'll say yes. And we are really lucky by the loyalty that a lot of our shareholders have given us, because prior to Buzz, we were really struggling. We didn't have the ammunition. We had a lot of injuries, horses that weren't good enough. And we got to the point when the syndicate we created, the Thurlow for Royal Marsden Syndicate, it was one of our last chances just to do something that we felt like gave back a little bit to a cause that was very important to us. We didn't think that we hoped that we would do a bit of good for the charity, but we never thought we would even earn enough money to give them a huge amount. We just wanted to give them some good PR with the logos on the silks, on the jockey silks. And so I remember when Buzz first won, we made sure that Nico de Boinville talked about it in his interview. Please talk about the fact that we're giving 25% of our prize money to the Royal Marsden, even if it was dribs and drabs of £500 here and there. So the fact that it's actually turned out to have a horse like Buzz winning the Cesarewitch, being how high profile he is, has really changed Furlough massively. So we're extremely proud that it's provided such a positive story. That he has been our flagship, that people know of us again. I don't think people remembered that we used to have good horses. So yeah, and that's why I've documented his recovery very specifically, because he is such an important horse for us. And we are very proud of the fact that now, based on that, we've been able to pick ourselves up again and buy more horses. So we've got 10 horses in training, and 8 flat horses, 2 of them that are going to Royal Ascot next week, and we're sort of rejuvenated ourselves again. But it's funny how one good horse can sort of pick you up, and yeah, we're very proud of him. So fingers crossed he gets back on track.
Indeed. Can I just ask for a cheeky update? How's our star doing?
Yeah, I saw him a couple of weeks ago. I gave him a walk around, which was great because normally he's usually so fresh. I wouldn't want to walk him, but I walked him myself and he was great. He's now in his pen, where he goes out 3 hours a day. He's got his front shoes on now, which is a huge move, to have his shoes back on. He hasn't had them on for nearly 6 months. And his pen will turn into a nursery, so it will be a big oak ground for him to cover. And as long as Nicky Henderson is happy, who I saw recently, and he is, he'll hopefully come back into 7 Barrows at the end of August. And until Reg, who sits on him and has looked after him since day one, sits on him, we won't know how he is. We won't know whether he's feeling the same. We just don't know. But all I know is that whatever happens, he'll have a happy life, whether it is racing or not, because he seems to be in good spirits with himself. So we'll get a scan to see whether the pelvis is healed over the next few weeks. But so far, so good. So you'll be able to see the updates. I'll definitely post them, because anytime I post anything about Buzz, it goes mad. He's got like such a loyal following now. So I feel it's my duty to keep the Buzz fan club up to date.
Absolutely wonderful. What a great thing to end, watching a great interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. You can catch Jess pretty much here, there, and everywhere, but she'll be on TVG this coming week for you.
TVG every day at Royal Ascot with Nick Luck and Scott Hazelton. So really looking forward to it. Hopefully there'll be an American winner in amongst all the international stars coming. But it would be even better and even bigger joy if one of the Thurlow horses run well.